My daughter said, "Skip Thanksgiving, Mom. I need space." Then she posted beach photos while I sat alone with her dead father's empty chair. I'm Jacqueline Rivers, 63 years old. 7 months ago, I buried my husband Thomas after 16 months of watching pancreatic cancer destroy the strongest man I'd ever known. Last week, my daughter Monica called with her Thanksgiving decision. "Mom, I've been thinking about the holidays," Monica said, her voice carrying that careful tone she used when delivering news she knew I wouldn't like. "I think it's best if I skip Thanksgiving this year. I need to process Dad's death in my own way. Process his death, like grief was a business strategy that required quarterly reviews. Monica, it's our first Thanksgiving without your father. I thought we could be together, honor his memory with the traditions he loved." That's exactly the problem, Mom. The traditions, the empty chair, the whole shrine situation. It's not healthy. I need space to heal differently. Space to heal. I'd heard those words before from Curtis and Andre. Curtis, my middle son, had called 2 days earlier explaining that a year-end audit emergency at his accounting firm meant he couldn't leave Atlanta. Andre, my youngest in Seattle, had a 3-month-old baby and a wife still recovering from a difficult C-section. Both of my sons had legitimate reasons, apologies in their voices, promises to visit soon. But Monica's call felt different, calculated, rehearsed. "Where will you be spending Thanksgiving?" I asked, though something in my chest already knew the answer. "I'm going to Cabo, a healing retreat, 4 days of meditation, yoga, self-care. Mom, I need this. Dad's death was traumatic. I have to prioritize my mental health." A healing retreat. In Cabo San Lucas. While I spent the first Thanksgiving without my husband of 36 years cooking his favorite dishes alone. "You've already booked it." "Yes, it's $2,750, but Mom, I can't put a price on healing. Dad would want me to take care of myself. Dad would want." She was already rewriting what Thomas would have wanted to justify what she wanted. "Monica, your father spent 28 years teaching elementary school children. He believed family showed up for each other, especially during hard times. I don't think he'd want you posting vacation photos while I sit alone on Thanksgiving. See, this is exactly why I need space. You're putting your grief on me, Mom. That's not fair. I'm allowed to grieve differently." After she hung up, I sat in the kitchen. Thomas and I had renovated in 2015, the kitchen where we'd hosted 35 Thanksgivings together, and I cried. Not the quiet tears I'd been shedding for 7 months, but deep sobs that hurt my chest. Thomas had made me promise something during his final week. "Take care of the kids, Jackie," he'd whispered, his voice barely audible over the oxygen machine. "But don't let them take you for granted. People show you who they are when things get hard." I hadn't understood what he meant then. Sitting alone in our kitchen, I finally did. That evening, I started preparing for Thanksgiving anyway. Not because I expected anyone to come, but because stopping felt like admitting Thomas was really gone. I made his shopping list in his handwriting that I'd saved from last year: cranberries for his famous sauce, sweet potatoes for the casserole he'd perfected over 30 years, fresh herbs for the stuffing his mother had taught him to make in 1985. The grocery bill came to $180. Money I couldn't really afford with Thomas's teacher pension gone and my own postal worker pension of $2,900 barely covering the mortgage and bills. But I bought everything anyway. On Thanksgiving morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. like always, set the turkey to roast, started the cranberry sauce, made the cornbread for stuffing, peeled 8 pounds of sweet potatoes even though I'd only eat a serving or two before they went bad. I set the dining room table for 8, just like always. Thomas's chair at the head of the table where he could see everyone's faces. The good china we'd received as wedding gifts in 1988. The centerpiece of autumn leaves and pine cones I'd made with Thomas 2 Thanksgivings ago, back when we didn't know cancer was already growing inside him. His place setting looked perfect. Fork, knife, spoon arranged exactly how he liked them. Water glass filled. Napkin folded the way his mother had taught us. An empty chair waiting for a man who would never sit in it again. At 11 a.m., my phone buzzed. Instagram notification. Monica had posted a photo, her on a beach in Cabo, wearing a white linen dress, holding a margarita, sunset behind her. The caption read, "Choosing healing over tradition. Blessed and grateful for this journey. Dad would want me to live my best life." Dad would want. There it was again. Thomas's memory weaponized to justify abandoning his widow on the first Thanksgiving without him. Another post at 2 p.m. Monica and 3 friends in matching grateful t-shirts, laughing at a resort pool. Healing looks different for everyone. Honoring my authentic grief journey. Authentic grief journey. While I carved a 20-pound turkey alone in a kitchen that smelled like every Thanksgiving Thomas and I had ever shared, I tried calling Curtis. No answer. He was probably buried in spreadsheets at his firm's office, feeling guilty but choosing work over family. Andre didn't pick up either. He was probably holding his baby daughter, the granddaughter I hadn't met yet because Seattle was too far and plane tickets were too expensive. At 3 p.m., I sat down at the table alone, 12 dishes spread across the surface, Thomas's empty chair, and me, a 63-year-old widow trying to figure out how to honor 36 years of marriage when the children we'd raised together couldn't be bothered to show up. I looked at Thomas's chair and whispered, "I don't know what to do. The kids, the house, all of it. I don't know how to do this without you." His chair didn't answer. But sitting in that silence, surrounded by traditions that suddenly felt hollow, I remembered something Thomas had told me during his cancer treatment. "Jackie, when I'm gone, you're going to see who people really are. Our kids, the family, everyone. Cancer shows you truth. Death shows you even more. Don't ignore what they show you." Monica had shown me. She'd chosen a $2,750 vacation and Instagram content over being present for her grieving mother. She'd turned her father's death into a personal brand opportunity. She'd posted blessed photos while I honored her father's memory alone. Thomas had left me one final gift, not just his pension or life insurance, but wisdom about character revealed in crisis, and our daughter had just revealed hers. That night, after putting away leftovers that would feed me for a week, I pulled out the estate documents our attorney Linda Chen had prepared. Thomas's life insurance, the house, our retirement accounts, everything we'd built over 36 years, now mine to manage alone. The estate was worth $795,000 on paper, but there was $328,000 in medical debt from Thomas's cancer treatments that insurance hadn't covered. Experimental therapies we'd tried desperately, hoping for 6 more months, a year, any more time together. I'd been planning to split everything equally among Monica, Curtis, and Andre. Standard inheritance. What parents do. But sitting alone on Thanksgiving night, looking at Monica's Instagram posts of her healing journey, I realized Thomas had been trying to tell me something important. Inheritance isn't automatic, it's earned, and maybe it was time to figure out what my children had actually earned. I need to tell you about Thomas because understanding him explains why this Thanksgiving hurt so much. We met in 1986 at a community center in Southwest Atlanta. I was 25, working at the post office, sorting mail on the night shift. Thomas was 27, teaching 3rd grade at King Elementary, coaching basketball after school. He had this way of making everyone feel seen, the kids at the community center, the parents, even the janitor. Thomas Preston Rivers treated every person like they mattered. That's what made me fall in love with him. Not his looks, though he was handsome, not his money, because teachers in 1986 Atlanta didn't have money, but his character. We got married in 1988 at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Small ceremony, 50 people, reception in the church basement. We couldn't afford anything fancy. I was 27, he was 29, and we were just starting out. Monica was born later that year. Curtis came in 1989, Andre in 1992. Thomas was the kind of father who coached every soccer team, attended every recital, helped with every science project. Even when he was exhausted from teaching 33rd graders all day, he'd come home and help our kids with homework. He'd make dinner while I was still at the post office finishing my shift. He'd do bedtime routines, read stories, pray with them. I wasn't perfect. I worked a lot. The postal service paid better than teaching, so I took every overtime shift I could. Weekends, holidays, whenever they needed coverage. We were saving for a house, for college funds, for the future Thomas always planned so carefully. That meant Thomas did most of the parenting during their childhood, and I miss things. Monica's first school play, Curtis's championship basketball game, Andre's 8th birthday party because I was working a holiday shift that paid time and a half. The kids didn't complain then. They understood we were building something. But later, when they were adults, Monica had mentioned it once. "You were never around when we were kids, Mom." Dad was the one who showed up. She wasn't wrong. I'd prioritized earning money over being present. And now I was paying for that distance with children who'd learned they could survive without me. But Thomas had been there for everything. In January 2023, Thomas started feeling tired all the time. Thought it was just aging, stress from teaching. By March, he'd lost 20 pounds. His doctor ordered tests, pancreatic cancer, stage 4. They gave him 6 to 12 months. I took family medical leave from the post office, spent every day with Thomas, drove him to chemotherapy twice a week at Grady Memorial, held his hand through procedures, watched him fade from 185 pounds to 140 pounds, watched the strongest man I'd ever known become someone who couldn't walk to the bathroom without help. The kids visited occasionally. Monica would stop by after work once a month, staying for 30 minutes, taking selfies with Thomas in his hospital bed. Dad and me fighting cancer together, she'd post on Instagram with prayer hand emojis. Curtis came more often, brought the grandkids, but he was always checking his phone, worried about work. "I have to keep my job, Mom," he'd say. "For Marcus and Zoe. You understand." Andre called from Seattle every Sunday, promised to visit soon. Made excuses about work deadlines, expensive flights, his pregnant wife. He finally came in April 2024, 1 month before Thomas died. Stayed 3 days, then flew back for a project launch. But Thomas's nephew Jerome and niece Keisha, they were different. Jerome was going through a divorce, needed a place to stay. I let him move into our guest room in November 2023. He'd drive Thomas to appointments when I was too exhausted, help him in and out of bed, sit with him during the bad nights when pain made sleep impossible. Keisha was a nurse at Grady. She'd come by after her shifts, check Thomas's medications, adjust his IV fluids, explain medical terms the oncologists used. She'd bring her son DeAndre, who'd sit quietly doing homework while Thomas dozed. Were their motives entirely pure? Probably not. Jerome needed housing. Keisha had mentioned once that she was struggling financially as a single mom, but they showed up. Day after day, week after week, month after month, they were there. Thomas died on the 15th of May 2024 at 3:17 a.m. I was holding his hand. Jerome was in the room. Keisha had come straight from her night shift. The kids, Monica, Curtis, and Andre, arrived 4 hours later after I'd called them. Monica cried beautifully at the funeral, posted about her best friend and hero on Instagram with a photo collage, got 1,200 likes. Curtis gave a eulogy about what a great father Thomas had been. Andre flew in from Seattle, stayed 2 days, flew back. After the funeral, life became a blur. Social Security survivor benefits, Thomas's teacher pension ending, medical bills arriving daily, $328,000 in treatments that insurance deemed experimental and wouldn't cover, the house needing repairs we couldn't afford. The silence in every room where Thomas used to be. Monica had called once in June, asking about the estate. "Mom, I know it's early, but Curtis and I were wondering about Dad's life insurance and the house situation. We want to make sure everything's properly documented." 3 weeks after burying her father, she was asking about inheritance. Curtis had been gentler. "Mom, no rush, but when you're ready, we should probably meet with an estate attorney, just to make sure everything's organized properly." Andre had said nothing about money, but he'd asked if I could help with his daughter's college fund someday. You know, when Dad's stuff gets sorted out. Dad's stuff, like Thomas's entire life, was just assets to be divided. Pastor Mike Thompson from our church had started checking on me weekly. He'd known Thomas for 15 years, had prayed with us through the cancer battle. "Jackie, grief is hard," he'd say. "But watch how people treat you now." Thomas always said crisis reveals character. Thomas had said that many times during his illness. "Jackie, when I'm gone, don't let people take advantage. The kids love you, but love and respect are different. Make them earn what matters." I hadn't understood then, thought he was being paranoid because of pain medication. But sitting in our house after that terrible Thanksgiving, I finally understood. Monica had earned nothing. She'd visited occasionally, posted content about her dying father, then skipped the first Thanksgiving without him for a beach vacation. She'd turned grief into a personal brand and abandoned her mother in the process. Curtis and Andre had tried harder. Curtis had guilt in his voice when he explained the work emergency. Andre had apologized profusely about his wife's C-section recovery and the new baby. They weren't perfect, but they weren't cruel. But Jerome and Keisha, the nephew and niece who had no claim to inheritance, they'd been present. Not perfectly, not without self-interest, but present. Thomas's voice echoed in my memory. "Character revealed in crisis. Jackie. Remember that." That weekend after Thanksgiving, I called Linda Chen, our estate attorney. "I need to understand my options. What can I actually control? What am I legally required to do? Because if my daughter could post beach photos while I honored her father's memory alone, maybe it was time to figure out what inheritance actually meant, and whether Monica had earned what she expected." Thanksgiving Day 2024 started at 5 a.m., just like it had for 35 years. But this time, Thomas wasn't there making coffee in his old Morehouse College t-shirt, teasing me about my systematic approach to turkey preparation. The kitchen felt enormous and empty without him filling it with his presence. I put on the gospel music station Thomas always played on Thanksgiving morning. Kirk Franklin's voice filled the kitchen while I seasoned the 20-pound turkey with the spice blend Thomas had perfected over decades. Paprika, garlic powder, sage, thyme, a secret ingredient he'd never written down but I'd watched him add every year. A tablespoon of coffee grounds for depth. My phone buzzed at 6:30 a.m. A text from Curtis. "Mom, I'm so sorry. The audit is a disaster. Client threatening to leave if we don't have everything done by Monday. I feel terrible about missing today. I'll make it up to you, I promise." At least he'd texted. At least there was guilt in his words. Andre had called the night before, his baby daughter crying in the background. "Mom, Lisa's still recovering. The doctor said no travel for at least another month. I wish I could be there. I wish you could meet Emma. She has Dad's eyes." Both of my sons had reasons. Not great reasons, not reasons Thomas would have accepted, but reasons that weren't pure selfishness. They were caught between obligations, trying to manage new families and demanding careers. They'd made choices I disagreed with, but at least they'd struggled with those choices. Monica's Instagram post from 7 a.m. showed otherwise. A sunrise photo from her resort balcony in Cabo, grateful for this healing journey. Choosing self-care over obligation. Living authentically in my grief. Self-care over obligation. My daughter had reduced family to an obligation she could skip for better content opportunities. By 9 a.m., I had the turkey in the oven, the sweet potato casserole assembled, the cranberry sauce simmering. I made Thomas's cornbread stuffing from scratch, using the cast iron skillet his mother had given us in 1988. Every dish was a memory, every recipe was Thomas's voice in my head. More butter, Jackie. You can't make good food scared of butter. The house smelled exactly like Thanksgiving should smell, but it felt wrong, like staging a play with no audience. I set the dining room table at 11 a.m. 8 place settings like always, Thomas's chair at the head. I put out the good china, the crystal water glasses, the cloth napkins Thomas had insisted on buying in 2015 when we renovated. We're not using paper napkins on Thanksgiving, Jackie. We raised our family better than that. His place looked perfect. Plate, silverware, napkin folded the way he liked. Water glass filled. His chair pulled out slightly, like he'd just stepped away and would be back any moment. Monica posted again at 11:30 a.m., a poolside photo with 3 friends I didn't recognize, all holding colorful drinks. My grief tribe. So grateful for friends who understand authentic healing. Dad's spirit is with us. Dad's spirit. In a resort pool in Mexico, while his widow cooked his recipes alone in the house he'd loved. Another notification at noon. A video of Monica doing yoga on the beach at sunset, finding peace in movement, releasing generational trauma, honoring my journey. Generational trauma. Thomas had worked 2 jobs to put her through college. I'd taken every overtime shift to make sure she never had student loans. That was the trauma she was releasing with beach, yoga, and margaritas. I carved the turkey at 2 p.m. 20 pounds of perfectly roasted bird for a table set for 8 with only 1 person eating. I filled serving dishes. Mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cornbread stuffing, cranberry sauce, sweet potato casserole with the pecan topping Thomas loved, macaroni and cheese because the kids had always insisted on it, collard greens because that's what Thomas's grandmother had taught us to make. 12 dishes. 3 hours of cooking. Enough food to feed my family for days. But my family was in Cabo, in Seattle, and at an accounting office 15 miles away. I sat down at 3 p.m., in my usual chair, looking at Thomas's empty seat across from me. For 35 years, he'd said grace at Thanksgiving. This year, I had to do it alone. Dear Lord, I started, my voice breaking immediately. Thank you for this food. Thank you for 36 years with Thomas. Thank you for the memories we made at this table. And Lord, help me understand what to do now, because I don't know how to honor Thomas's memory when our children can't be bothered to show up. I served myself small portions of everything, took a bite of turkey, and it tasted exactly like Thomas's seasoning. Perfect, which made it worse because he wasn't there to be proud of getting it right. My phone buzzed throughout the meal. More Instagram posts from Monica. A group photo with everyone in matching grateful t-shirts. A boomerang video of champagne being poured. A carousel of beach sunset photos with a caption about choosing joy despite loss. Each notification felt like a slap. My daughter was choosing Instagram content over honoring her father's memory. She was performing grief for likes while I actually lived it. Curtis texted at 4 p.m. How's everything going, Mom? Wish I was there. Save me some leftovers? Andre called at 5 p.m., but I didn't answer. I couldn't talk to him while sitting at this table, surrounded by food no one was eating, staring at Thomas's empty chair. At 6 p.m., I started putting food away, portioning turkey into freezer bags, storing sides in containers that would fill my refrigerator for weeks. Every leftover a reminder that I'd cooked for a family that didn't come. I left Thomas's place setting on the table. Couldn't bring myself to clear it. His plate, his silverware, his water glass. As if clearing his place would make his death more real than it already was. That evening, I sat in Thomas's favorite chair in the living room, the recliner he'd bought in 2018 after his back surgery. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Monica's Instagram. 17 posts from Cabo over Thanksgiving Day, sunrise yoga, pool cocktails, beach meditation, sunset dinners, group photos with captions about healing and authentic grief journeys. Not a single mention of her father. Not one photo of a memory they'd shared. Not one acknowledgement that this was the first Thanksgiving without the man who'd raised her, loved her, sacrificed for her. But there was one post that made me stop scrolling. Monica on the beach in a white dress, holding a margarita, laughing. The caption read, "Dad would want me to live my best life," honoring his memory by choosing happiness over traditional mourning. "Love you, Daddy." Dad would want. "Love you, Daddy." Performed for 47,000 followers who didn't know Thomas, didn't know our family, didn't know that this beautiful daughter posting about her grief journey had abandoned her mother on the hardest day of the year. I thought about Thomas's words again. Character revealed in crisis, Jackie. Monica had revealed hers. Curtis and Andre had revealed theirs too, choosing work and new families over their widowed mother. Jerome and Keisha, despite their imperfect motives, had been here when it mattered. That night, before bed, I sat at the dining room table again. Thomas's place still set, his chair still empty. I pulled out the estate documents Linda Chen had prepared and started reading through them carefully. Thomas's life insurance, $180,000. Our retirement accounts, $150,000. The house, $465,000. Total estat, $795, minus $328,000 in medical debt, minus $82,000 in house repairs we'd been deferring because we couldn't afford them. What remained? $385,000 to split among 3 children, about $128,000 each. Standard inheritance, what parents do, divide everything equally regardless of who showed up, who cared, who honored the parent who died. But I kept thinking about Thomas's empty chair, about cooking 12 dishes alone, about Monica's Instagram posts, choosing authentic healing over being present for her grieving mother. And I wondered if maybe equal wasn't the same as fair. If maybe inheritance should be about more than just biology. If maybe Thomas had been trying to tell me something important about letting people face the consequences of their choices. I didn't make any decisions that night. But I didn't sleep either. Just sat at that table, looking at Thomas's chair, wondering what he'd want me to do. Wondering if love sometimes meant saying no. Wondering if the greatest gift I could give my children was the truth about what they'd earned. Monday morning, I called Linda Chen, our estate attorney. She'd prepared Thomas's will 6 years ago when we'd finally gotten around to proper estate planning. Back then, everything was simple. Split everything equally among the 3 kids. Standard arrangement for standard families. But we weren't a standard family anymore. Thomas was dead. Monica was posting beach photos while I grieved alone, and I needed to understand what I actually controlled. Linda's office was in Buckhead, a small suite in a building that had seen better days. She'd been our attorney for 20 years, handled our house purchase, our wills, every legal document we'd ever needed. She was 58, Chinese American, practical in a way I appreciated. "Jacqueline, I'm so sorry about Thanksgiving," she said after I'd explained what happened. "That must have been incredibly painful. I need to know my options. What can I actually do with Thomas's estate?" Linda pulled out our file. "Let's review what we're working with. Thomas's life insurance is $180,000, payable directly to you as beneficiary. Your combined retirement accounts total about $150,000. The house is in both your names, currently valued at $465,000. That's $795,000 total. On paper, yes. But Jacqueline, We need to talk about the medical debt, the bills from Thomas's cancer treatment. I'd been trying not to think about those bills. They arrived almost daily. Envelopes from Grady Memorial, from the Oncology Center, from the experimental treatment facility in Florida we'd tried in March. $328,000 in treatments that insurance had denied as experimental or non-essential. Those debts have to be paid from the estate before any inheritance distribution, Linda explained. That reduces the estate to $467,000. And the house needs $82,000 in repairs. The roof, the HVAC system, foundation work. Linda made notes. If we factor in repair costs before sale, you're looking at a net estate of approximately $385,000. Split 3 ways among Monica, Curtis, and Andre, that's about $128,000 each. $128,000. Not the huge inheritance they probably expected, but still substantial. Money Thomas and I had earned through 36 years of careful saving, living below our means, choosing practical over comfortable. What if I don't want to split it equally? I asked. Linda looked up from her notes. Jacqueline, Thomas's will specifies equal distribution among all 3 children. You can't change that without their consent, and even then, it would require legal proceedings. My heart sank. So I have no control? You have control over some things. The house is in both your names. When Thomas died, his half transferred to you automatically as surviving spouse. That means the house is now 100% yours. You can do whatever you want with it. Keep it, sell it, donate it. The children have no legal claim to the house until you die. What about the life insurance and retirement accounts? Those follow the will. Equal distribution among the 3 children after your death. During your lifetime, those assets are yours to use for your care and living expenses. But you can't redirect them to other people without contesting the will, which would cost legal fees you probably can't afford and would take years. I sat back in the uncomfortable office chair. So basically, I can control the house, but not the rest. Correct. The house is your biggest asset and your biggest leverage. If you donate it or sell it for less than market value, that reduces what the children inherit. But Jacqueline, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do something that punitive? These are your children. Monica posted 17 Instagram stories from Cabo while I cooked Thanksgiving dinner alone. Curtis and Andre couldn't be bothered to come, despite knowing this was my first holiday without Thomas. Are they my children? Or are they 3 adults who see me as an inheritance waiting to happen? Linda was quiet for a moment. I can't advise you on family dynamics. I can only tell you the legal options. You could donate the house to a charity, a foundation, a nonprofit. That would eliminate $465,000 from the inheritance pool. After debts, the kids would split approximately $150,000, so $50,000 each instead of $128,000. $50,000 each instead of $128,000. A significant reduction. A consequence Monica couldn't Instagram her way out of. What about the repairs? If I donate the house, do I have to fix it first? Depends on who you donate to. Some organizations take property as is. Cancer research foundations, for example, often accept real estate donations in any condition. They sell it themselves and use the proceeds for research funding. Cancer research, the disease that had killed Thomas, the experimental treatments we'd bankrupted ourselves trying. Suddenly, the path forward felt clear. If I donate the house to a cancer foundation, what happens to me? Where do I live? You'd need to find rental housing. At 63, with your postal pension of $2,900 a month, you could afford a decent apartment. Senior living communities in Atlanta run about $1,200 to $1,500 a month. $1,200 to $1,500 a month, leaving me with $1,400 to $1,700 for food, utilities, medical expenses, everything else. It would be tight. Really tight, but possible. So I'd lose my home to make a point? You'd lose your home to honor your husband's memory and redirect resources to a cause he would have supported. Whether that's making a point or living your values, that's for you to decide. I looked around Linda's office, framed law degrees, photos of her family, a life built on helping people navigate difficult decisions. Can I think about this? Of course. But Jacqueline, one more thing. If you do this, if you donate the house, your children will know it's a response to their Thanksgiving behavior. Monica especially will know. This will damage your relationship, possibly permanently. Are you prepared for that? My relationship with Monica is already damaged. She chose a beach vacation over her grieving mother. That damage was done before I walked into your office. And Curtis and Andre? They'll lose inheritance too. They made their choices. Curtis chose work over family. Andre chose convenience over presence. Those were their decisions. Now I get to make mine. Linda nodded slowly. Then think about it. Talk to your pastor if that helps. But don't make this decision from anger. Make it from clarity about what Thomas would want and what you can live with. I left her office and drove home to the house Thomas and I had bought in 1992, the house where we'd raised 3 children, the house that suddenly felt like the last piece of Thomas I had left. And I had to decide if I was willing to give it up to teach my children a lesson they'd probably never forgive me for. 2 days after meeting with Linda, Curtis called. It was Wednesday evening, and I was eating leftover turkey for the 4th night in a row, sitting at the dining room table with Thomas's place still set across from me. "Mom, I'm so sorry about Thanksgiving," Curtis said, his voice heavy with guilt. "The audit was a nightmare. We worked straight through the holiday weekend, but I know that's not an excuse. I should have been there." I didn't say anything, just waited. "Jennifer is upset with me too," he continued. "She said I prioritized work over family. She's right. Marcus keeps asking when we're going to see Grandma Jackie again. Zoe made you a card at school." "Mom, I really messed up." Curtis sounded genuinely remorseful, not like Monica's performative grief posts. Real guilt from a son who understood he'd made the wrong choice. "How's work?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Terrible, actually. We finished the audit, but the clients still left. Said they didn't trust a firm that couldn't manage their own people. My boss blamed me for working Thanksgiving when I should have delegated, so I lost the holiday with you and still got blamed at work. I can't win. Sometimes there are no winning choices, Curtis. Just consequences." He was quiet for a moment. "Mom, are you okay? You sound different." "I'm a 63-year-old widow who spent Thanksgiving alone while her children chose other priorities. How should I sound?" I said, "I'm sorry. What else do you want me to say?" "I don't want you to say anything, Curtis. I want you to understand that sorry doesn't undo the choice. Your father is dead. We can't get these holidays back. Every Thanksgiving I have left, I'll remember the first one without Thomas. I'll remember cooking alone, setting his empty place, and nobody coming." Curtis's voice cracked. "Mom, please don't do this. I feel terrible already." "Good. You should feel terrible. But Curtis, I know work is complicated. I know you have a family to support. I'm not lumping you in with Monica." "Monica." He said her name like a curse. "She called me from Cabo. Wanted to know if I thought you were serious about being upset. Like it was unreasonable for you to expect your children to show up for Thanksgiving." "What did you tell her?" "I told her she's selfish, and Dad would be ashamed. She hung up on me. We haven't spoken since." At least Curtis understood the difference between difficult choices and selfish ones. Andre called the next day. Thursday afternoon, his baby crying in the background. "Mom, I'm sorry I haven't called sooner. Emma's been sick. Colic, the doctor says. Lisa and I haven't slept more than 3 hours at a time in weeks." But that's not an excuse for missing Thanksgiving. I should have figured something out. Andre sounded exhausted. Not guilty like Curtis, just defeated by new parenthood in a way that made me remember when he was the baby keeping me up all night. "How's Lisa doing?" I asked. "Struggling. The C-section recovery was harder than expected. She's still in pain, can't lift anything over 10 pounds, which means I'm doing all the baby care while trying to work from home. Mom, I'm drowning. I wanted to come for Thanksgiving. I wanted you to meet Emma, but I couldn't leave Lisa alone, and she couldn't travel. I don't know what I was supposed to do differently. You were supposed to call before Thanksgiving, supposed to explain instead of just not showing up, supposed to treat me like I matter. You do matter. Mom, you're the first person I wanted to tell when Emma was born. You're the first person I call when things go wrong. But sometimes, life doesn't allow for perfect choices. Neither does death, Andre. Your father didn't get to choose the timing. I don't get to choose when grief hits hardest. But you got to choose whether to acknowledge my first Thanksgiving alone or just hope I'd understand." He was quiet, baby still crying in the background. "What do you want from me, Mom?" "Nothing you're not already giving. You're trying. I see that. But I also see that your new family comes first now. That's natural. That's how it should be. But it means I need to figure out my life without depending on children who have their own lives to manage. That sounds like you're pulling away from us." "I'm accepting reality, Andre. You're in Seattle with a newborn. Curtis is buried in work. Monica's doing whatever Monica does. None of you need me the way I needed you on Thanksgiving. So I need to adjust my expectations accordingly." "Mom, that's not fair. We love you. I know you do. But love and presence aren't the same thing. Your father taught me that. He showed up for 36 years. Every day, every crisis, every moment that mattered. That's the standard I measure love by now. And by that standard, most people fail." After Andre hung up, I sat in Thomas's recliner thinking about the difference between Curtis's guilt, Andre's exhaustion, and Monica's absence. Curtis had made a bad choice and knew it. Andre had made an impossible choice and felt terrible about it. Monica had made a selfish choice and posted beach photos. 3 children. 3 different responses to the same situation, but the result was the same. I'd spent Thanksgiving alone. That evening, Pastor Mike Thompson stopped by unannounced. He'd been doing that since Thomas died, just checking in, making sure I was eating, wasn't too isolated. "Jackie, the church ladies are worried about you," he said, accepting the tea I offered. "Said you've been different since Thanksgiving, quieter, more withdrawn. My children abandoned me on the first holiday without Thomas. How should I be?" Pastor Mike sipped his tea slowly. He'd been a pastor for 30 years, knew when to push and when to just listen. "Tell me what you're thinking about doing," he said finally. "How did you know I'm thinking about doing something?" "Because I've known you for 15 years. You don't sulk, Jackie. You act. And the way you're talking about your children, like you're making final assessments, that worries me." I told him about the estate meeting with Linda, about the house being my only real control, about considering donating it to a cancer research foundation instead of leaving it for the children to inherit. Pastor Mike didn't interrupt, just listened while I explained the finances, the medical debt, the repairs needed, the reduced inheritance the children would receive if I donated the house. When I finished, he set down his teacup and looked at me with those kind, knowing eyes. "Jackie, I'm going to ask you something, and I need you to really think about it. Are you doing this to honor Thomas or to punish Monica?" The question hit me like cold water. "Both," I said finally. "Can't it be both?" Pastor Mike stayed for another hour that evening, asking questions I didn't want to answer, but needed to hear. If Thomas were sitting here right now, what would he say about donating the house? He asked. I thought about it carefully. He'd ask if I could afford to live somewhere else. He'd worry about my financial security. And after you assured him you'd be fine, he'd probably support it. Thomas believed in cancer research. He'd want his death to mean something beyond just grief. But would he want you to use it as a weapon against your children? That was harder to answer. Thomas had been tough on the kids when they disappointed him, but he'd also believed in grace, in second chances, in teaching through consequences but not cruelty. I don't know, I admitted, maybe not Monica. But Curtis and Andre didn't do what Monica did. They had reasons, even if those reasons weren't good enough. So you're punishing two sons who made difficult choices because one daughter made a selfish one? The inheritance is split 3 ways. I can't give Curtis and Andre their share without giving Monica hers. Pastor Mike nodded slowly. Legal truth. But here's the spiritual truth, Jackie. Consequences are about teaching, not revenge. If you donate that house primarily to hurt Monica, you're not honoring Thomas. You're feeding your own anger. Maybe I'm allowed to be angry. Absolutely. You're allowed to be furious. But permanent decisions made from temporary emotions, those are the ones we regret. After he left, I couldn't stop thinking about his question. Honor or punishment? Teaching or revenge? I pulled out my phone and looked at Monica's Instagram again. She'd posted 3 more times since Thanksgiving. A yoga selfie, a quote about radical self-love, a photo of her at a marketing awards dinner with the caption, "Grateful for this amazing community that supports my authentic journey." Authentic journey. The words made my jaw clench. There was nothing authentic about abandoning your grieving mother for Instagram content. But then I scrolled further back, to posts from when Thomas was sick, Monica visiting him in the hospital, Monica holding his hand, the caption, "My hero is fighting the hardest battle. Please pray for my dad." Had that been performative? Or had she genuinely loved her father and just handled grief poorly? I called Curtis the next morning. "I need you to be honest with me about something." "Okay, Mom. What is it?" "During your dad's cancer treatment, did Monica visit as much as she posted about visiting?" Curtis hesitated. "Mom, why are you asking?" "Because I'm trying to figure out if she's always been selfish, or if grief made her selfish." "She visited," Curtis said carefully. "Not as much as the Instagram post suggested. She'd come for an hour, take photos with Dad, post them over the next week like she'd been there constantly. But she did care, Mom, in her way." "What way is that?" "Monica processes everything through her public image. It's not healthy, but it's how she's wired. When Dad was sick, posting about it made it real for her. When he died, posting about healing made her feel like she was doing something productive. So Cabo was her way of processing grief? No, Cabo was her being selfish. There's a difference between processing grief publicly and abandoning you on Thanksgiving. I'm not defending that. After talking to Curtis, I realized something uncomfortable. Monica wasn't entirely a villain. She was a woman in her late 30s who'd built her identity around Instagram authenticity and didn't know how to grieve without an audience. That didn't excuse Cabo. But it complicated the story I'd been telling myself about my purely evil daughter. That weekend, I drove to Grady Memorial Hospital, the oncology wing where Thomas had spent so many days. I'd been avoiding it since he died, couldn't face the memories, but I needed to see something. The Cancer Resource Center was on the 3rd floor. A small room with pamphlets about treatment options, support groups, financial assistance programs. I talked to the volunteer coordinator about cancer research funding. "We're always looking for donors," she said. "Research funding is how we develop new treatments. Every dollar goes directly to clinical trials, drug development, patient care innovations. If someone donated a house, what would happen to it? We'd sell it and put the proceeds into our research fund. A house worth $400,000 to $500,000 could fund a clinical trial for a year. Maybe save lives Thomas's treatments couldn't. Save lives. That's what donating the house would do. Not punish Monica. Save lives." I sat in my car in the hospital parking lot for a long time, thinking about intention. Pastor Mike was right. If I donated the house to hurt Monica, that was revenge. But if I donated it to honor Thomas and fund research that might save other families from what we went through, that was purpose. The reduced inheritance would still impact all 3 children. Curtis would get $50,000 instead of $128,000. Andre, too. Monica's consequences wouldn't be isolated, but the primary goal would be positive, not negative. That evening, I called Linda Chen. I want to donate the house to the Grady Memorial Cancer Research Fund. Can you draw up the paperwork? Jacqueline, are you absolutely sure? Once you do this, you can't undo it, and your children will lose significant inheritance. I'm sure. Thomas died from cancer. He'd want his death to mean something. This is how I honor him. When do you want to tell the children? I thought about Monica's Instagram, Curtis's guilt, Andre's exhaustion. I'll tell them myself, after Christmas. Give them one more holiday without this hanging over them. That's generous, considering. It's not generous, it's strategic. I want them to understand this isn't impulsive anger, it's a carefully considered decision. That matters. After I hung up, I sat at the dining room table with Thomas's empty place setting. I hope I'm doing the right thing, I whispered to his chair. I hope you'd be proud. His chair didn't answer, but somewhere inside, I felt like maybe, finally, I was honoring him the way he deserved. Not by holding on to the house we'd built together, but by letting it save lives he'd wanted to live. Christmas came and went quietly. Curtis brought his family for a few hours on Christmas Day. Marcus and Zoe ran around the house, reminding me of when my own children were young. Jennifer apologized again for Curtis's Thanksgiving absence, her eyes genuinely sad. Andre called from Seattle, held his phone up so I could see baby Emma's face for the first time. She did have Thomas's eyes. Dark brown, serious, taking everything in. I cried watching her through a screen, this granddaughter I'd never held. Monica sent a text on Christmas Eve. Merry Christmas, Mom. Hope you're doing okay. No phone call, no visit. Just a text message like I was a coworker she barely knew. I didn't respond. In early January, I called a family meeting, asked Curtis to drive over, told Andre to be available on video call. Didn't tell Monica, just sent a text. Family meeting Sunday at 2 p.m. About your father's estate. Be here. She responded 3 hours later. Can't we do this over the phone? Sunday's my self-care day. Be here or miss important information about your inheritance. Your choice. She showed up. That's how I knew money mattered more than self-care. Sunday afternoon, Curtis arrived with Jennifer and the kids. I'd asked him to bring them, wanted Marcus and Zoe to be part of this. Andre appeared on my laptop screen, Emma sleeping in his arms. Monica arrived 15 minutes late, wearing athleisure and annoyed energy. Mom, what's this about? I have plans later. Sit down, Monica. This won't take long. I'd prepared what to say, rehearsed it with Pastor Mike, kept it factual, not emotional. Don't let Monica turn this into a fight. I met with our estate attorney in December. We reviewed your father's will and the assets he left. I want you all to understand what you're inheriting. Curtis looked nervous. Mom, we don't need to discuss this now. You're still alive. This feels morbid. Your father is dead. That's morbid. This is just practical. I pulled out the papers Linda had prepared. Thomas's estate totals $795,000. The house, his life insurance, our retirement accounts. Monica's eyes lit up slightly. She was doing math in her head. A third of $795,000 was $265,000, probably more than she'd expected. However, we have $328,000 in medical debt from your father's cancer treatments. Insurance denied most of the experimental therapies. Those bills have to be paid from the estate before any distribution. Curtis nodded slowly. So, that leaves about $467,000 to split? Before other expenses, yes. The house needs $82,000 in repairs before it can be sold. Roof, HVAC, foundation. Work your father and I deferred because we couldn't afford it. So, about $385,000 remaining, Monica said impatiently. That's still almost $130,000 each. Mom, we appreciate this, but couldn't this have been an email? I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The child Thomas had coached in soccer, the teenager he'd helped through calculus, the woman who'd posted beach photos while I honored his memory alone. That would be the inheritance if I were leaving you the house. I'm not. The room went silent. Andre shifted on the laptop screen. Mom, what do you mean? The house is in my name only now. Thomas's half transferred to me when he died. That means I control what happens to it. I'm donating it to the Grady Memorial Cancer Research Fund. Monica stood up. You're, what? Donating it. To fund cancer research. The kind of research that might have saved your father if it had existed sooner. You can't do that. That's our inheritance. It's my house, Monica. Legally, I can do whatever I want with it. Curtis looked stunned. Mom, that's $465,000. If you donate it, we each lose about $155,000 in inheritance. We'd only get about $50,000 each. I'm aware of the math, Curtis. I've thought about this very carefully. Your father died from cancer. This house can fund a year of clinical trials. Maybe save other families from what we went through. Or you could leave it to your children like a normal parent, Monica snapped. Normal parents have children who show up for Thanksgiving, who don't post beach vacation photos while their mother grieves alone. There it was, the truth I'd been trying to keep clinical and factual. Monica's face went red. So this is punishment. You're stealing our inheritance because I went to Cabo. I'm not stealing anything. The house is mine to do with as I choose. I'm choosing to honor your father's memory in a way that matters. By screwing your children out of money. By funding research that might save lives. If you see that as screwing you over, that says more about you than it does about me. Curtis put his head in his hands. Mom, I understand you're upset about Thanksgiving. I messed up too. But this is permanent. You're talking about giving away almost $500,000 that Dad worked his entire life to build. Your father worked his entire life teaching children. He believed in service, in contributing to something bigger than himself. This donation honors who he was. Leaving it to children who couldn't be bothered to show up for his first Thanksgiving memorial would dishonor him. That's not fair, Andre said from the laptop screen. I had a newborn. Lisa couldn't travel. What was I supposed to do? Call beforehand, explain, apologize, acknowledge that it mattered. Any of those things would have been better than just not showing up and hoping I'd understand. Monica grabbed her purse. This is insane. I'm calling a lawyer. You can't just give away our inheritance. Actually, I can. Linda Chen confirmed it. The house is mine. But Monica, if you contest this, if you try to fight me legally, you'll spend more on attorneys than you'd gain. And I'll make sure everyone knows you sued your widowed mother over a cancer research donation. You wouldn't. Try me. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Marcus started crying. Zoe looked scared. Jennifer pulled them both close, whispering that everything was okay, even though clearly nothing was okay. Curtis looked at me with something like betrayal in his eyes. Mom, I know I let you down, but this feels cruel. Your father spent 16 months dying. I spent 16 months watching him fade. Then I spent Thanksgiving alone cooking his recipes while your sister posted vacation photos. You want to talk about cruel? So, we all get punished because Monica's selfish? You all get a reduced inheritance because I'm choosing to fund cancer research with my house. If that feels like punishment, maybe examine why you think you're entitled to assets I'm still alive to control. Andre's voice came from the laptop, quiet. Mom, I respect what you're doing. Dad would have wanted cancer research funded, but it hurts that you're using our inheritance to make a point. I'm not making a point. I'm making a choice. There's a difference. After they left, I sat alone in the living room, Thomas's chair empty, the house quiet. I'd done what I thought was right. Honored Thomas, funded research, taught my children that presence matters more than expectations. So why did it feel like I'd just lost my family? The donation paperwork took 6 weeks to finalize. Linda Chen worked with Grady Memorial's legal team to structure the transfer properly. The house would be sold through their real estate program, proceeds going directly into the Thomas Rivers Cancer Research Fund. My name, his name, together one more time in service of something that mattered. During those 6 weeks, I didn't hear from Monica at all. Not a call, not a text, nothing. Curtis checked in weekly, his voice strained with the tension of trying to maintain relationships with both his mother and his sister. Andre sent photos of Emma, careful conversations that avoided mentioning the inheritance. In late February, I started packing. 32 years in this house, every room filled with memories of Thomas, of raising 3 children, of building a life together from nothing. I packed his clothes for donation, his books for the church library, his tools for Jerome, who'd actually use them. The real estate agent said the house would sell quickly, even with needed repairs. Location was excellent, bones were solid, cosmetic issues could be fixed. She estimated $465,000, maybe more if we got bidding interest. Jerome helped me pack. Keisha brought boxes from the hospital. They were both careful not to mention the inheritance situation, though I knew they'd heard. The black community in Atlanta wasn't that big. Everyone knew everyone's business eventually. "Miss Jackie, where you moving to?" Jerome asked, wrapping Thomas's coffee mugs in newspaper. "Senior apartment complex in East Point. 2 bedrooms, $1,150 a month. Small but manageable. You need help moving?" "I'd appreciate that, Jerome. Thank you." He nodded, kept packing. After a while, he said quietly, "Mr. Thomas would be proud of what you're doing. The research fund, I mean." "You think so?" "I know so. He used to talk about it during chemo. How maybe his suffering could mean something if it helped scientists understand the disease better. This is exactly what he would have wanted. I hadn't known Thomas said that. It helped, knowing this decision aligned with wishes he'd expressed before pain medication and morphine made conversations impossible. The house sold in March for $472,000. After realtor fees and closing costs, the Cancer Research Fund received $441,000. Combined with Thomas's life insurance and retirement accounts, after paying the medical debts, each child received $49,000. Not the $128,000 they'd expected. But not nothing either. Curtis accepted his check with quiet grace. "Mom, I still think you could have handled this differently, but I understand why you did it, and I'm sorry about Thanksgiving. I'll regret that for the rest of my life." "I know you will, Curtis. That regret matters." Andre flew in from Seattle to sign paperwork, brought Emma. I held my granddaughter for the first time. This tiny person with Thomas's eyes and my nose. She grabbed my finger with surprising strength. "She's beautiful," I whispered. "She is. Mom, I want you to be part of her life. I know I messed up, but Emma should know her grandmother. Can we start over?" "We can try, Andre. But understand something. I'm not the same person I was before Thomas died. Before Thanksgiving. I don't have unlimited patience anymore. I don't give second chances without seeing change behavior first." "Fair enough. I'll earn it." Monica's check sat uncashed in my apartment for 3 months. She finally came to collect it in June, 8 months after Thanksgiving. She'd lost weight, looked tired, her Instagram perfect appearance dimmed. "I need to pick up the inheritance check," she said at my apartment door. No greeting, no small talk. I handed her the envelope. It's been waiting." She looked at the amount. $49,000. Her face tightened. This is what Dad's life was worth? What our family home was worth? That's what's left after donating to cancer research and paying medical debts your father incurred trying to stay alive. If the amount disappoints you, maybe reflect on whether showing up for Thanksgiving would have been worth $79,000. You're never going to let that go, are you? You posted 17 Instagram stories from Cabo while I cooked your father's recipes alone. No, Monica, I'm not letting that go. I was grieving in my own way. You were performing grief for followers. There's a difference, and that difference cost you $79,000. She left without another word. I never saw her Instagram posts after that. She'd either blocked me or I'd stopped mattering to her audience. But the consequences found her anyway. Curtis told me months later that one of Monica's major clients, a family-oriented restaurant chain, had dropped her after someone on their board asked about her Thanksgiving Cabo trip. They said they couldn't trust someone to represent family values who'd abandoned her widowed mother on the first holiday after her father's death. Her Instagram following had dropped from 47,000 to 28,000. Her authentic living brand tarnished by actual authenticity about her choices. The internet never forgets, and someone had screenshot her blessed beach posts with timestamps showing they were posted during Thanksgiving Day. Monica's career hadn't ended. She was still working, still posting, still building her brand, but the shine was gone. The authenticity she'd performed for years revealed as selective, convenient, self-serving. Meanwhile, the Thomas Rivers Cancer Research Fund began its work. In September, Grady Memorial announced they were funding a clinical trial for pancreatic cancer treatment using an experimental drug therapy. The kind of treatment Thomas might have benefited from if it had existed 2 years earlier. I attended the announcement press conference. Stood in the back of the room while doctors explained how the $441,000 donation from Thomas's estate would fund 18 months of research. They showed a photo of Thomas from before cancer, healthy and smiling, his arm around me at a church picnic. Mr. Rivers fought bravely against pancreatic cancer, Dr. Peterson, the oncologist, told the assembled reporters. His widow's generous donation ensures that future patients might have treatment options he didn't. This is how we turn tragedy into hope. After the press conference, a young woman approached me, maybe 30, thin, scared-looking. "Mrs. Rivers, I'm Sarah Chen. I'm starting this clinical trial next month. Your husband's donation is why I have a chance. I just wanted to say thank you." I looked at this stranger, this woman whose life might be saved by money Monica thought should have funded her lifestyle. Thomas would have wanted this. He believed in helping people. You honor him by fighting. She hugged me, crying. "I have a 4-year-old daughter. Your husband's gift might mean I get to watch her grow up." After she left, I sat in my car and cried. Not from grief this time, from something else. Purpose, maybe. The sense that Thomas's death had created something beyond just loss. That our marriage, our life together, had produced ripples that would continue long after both of us were gone. I never reconciled with Monica. She sent a Christmas card that year, generic message, no personal note. I sent one back. We maintained that distance, cordial but disconnected, a relationship reduced to obligation neither of us particularly enjoyed. Curtis and I rebuilt slowly. He visited monthly with the grandkids. Never mentioned the inheritance. Focused on being present in ways he hadn't been before. Learning, maybe, that some lessons require loss to be internalized. Andre sent photos of Emma weekly, invited me to Seattle for Christmas. I went, spent 2 weeks meeting my granddaughter properly, watching her learn to walk, hearing her call me Gamma Jackie in a voice that sounded like Thomas's laugh. My apartment in East Point was small. 1 bedroom for me, 1 converted to an office where I kept Thomas's photos, his books, his memory organized and accessible. The rent was $1,100 $150, leaving me $1,750 from my pension for everything else. Tight, but manageable. I'd lived on less when Thomas and I were young. I didn't regret donating the house. Not when I saw Sarah Chen's photo in the newspaper a year later, cancer in remission, holding her daughter. Not when the research fund announced they were expanding the clinical trial based on promising early results. Not when I visited Thomas's grave and told him what his death had created. Some prices are worth paying. Some inheritance is measured in lives saved rather than dollars distributed. Some love requires letting go of what you built together so it can become something bigger than just memory. 2 years after Thomas died, I sat in my small apartment on Thanksgiving morning. No turkey, no 12 dishes, no elaborate meal. Just me, a rotisserie chicken from the grocery store, and a phone call with Andre and Emma. Curtis came by later with his family. Monica sent a text, "Happy Thanksgiving." I didn't respond. Thomas's chair wasn't with me anymore. It had been donated with the house contents. But I didn't need the physical chair to remember what he'd taught me. That presence matters. That character reveals itself in crisis. That love sometimes means consequences. That inheritance is earned, not entitled. The greatest gift Thomas left me wasn't money or property. It was clarity about what mattered, and the courage to act on that clarity even when it cost me relationships I'd once thought were unbreakable. Some things, once broken, can't be repaired. Monica and I would never be close again. That was the price of honoring Thomas's memory the way he deserved. But watching Sarah Chen's daughter grow up, healthy and happy, because money that could have funded Monica's lifestyle funded her mother's cancer treatment instead, that made the price worth paying. Thomas would have understood. In the end, that was all that mattered. That is Jacqueline Rivers' story. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What city? What country? Drop it in the comments below. I love seeing our global community, especially those who understand the impossible choices that come with grief and family expectations. Real question. If you were Jacqueline, would you have donated the house to cancer research? Given up almost $500,000 to honor your spouse's memory, knowing it would permanently damage your relationship with your children? Or would you have let the inheritance stand, kept the peace, and moved on? Tell me in the comments. Hit that like button if this story made you think about the cost of consequences. Share it if you know someone who's navigated the impossible space between honoring a deceased spouse and maintaining relationships with adult children. Someone who's had to choose between enabling bad behavior and permanently damaging family bonds. And subscribe for more real stories about grief, family expectations, inheritance conflicts, and the complicated reality of loving people who disappoint you during your darkest moments. Drop your take in the comments. I read every single one. Thanks for watching. Sometimes the people you raised become strangers you don't recognize. Sometimes honoring the dead means losing the living. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people face the full weight of their choices, even when those consequences destroy relationships you thought would last forever. Some lessons can only be taught through loss. Some inheritance is measured in character rather than cash. And some love requires distance to preserve what little remains. See you in the next video.